guys, welcome to Cerwin Vegas. This video I'm going to be doing some work on the mid-range grills on both the D7 and D9s I have behind me here. This will be the first step of the restoration of both of these sets of digital series Cerwin Vegas speakers. I've got some aftermarket grills I'm going to be installing on the D7s, and I'm actually going to be taking the grills off the D7s and making them fit onto the D9. The grills that I got do not work for the D9 mids because they're slightly different. I'll show you guys why. Okay, so I'm going to get to replacing these. I'm going to show you, this is just something that it just happened to work out for me that I had the right grills to work for these ones and not necessarily the other ones. The grills on these are perfectly fine, so there's no need for me to actually remove these other than the fact that these are the two sets I have. I have nothing to work with the D9s. I'm still trying to find something out there that works really good for those. If I come across it, I'll be sure to let you guys know where you can get them. But as of right now, it's really hard to try to find something that matches similar enough that if you only had to do one or two, that you're not going to notice the difference instead of having to do all of them, like what I got to do. So here is the aftermarket mid-range grill that I'm going to be using on here. So now I'll give you guys a close look here. This is a separate piece. These grills are actually smaller than the ones that are on there, so they don't work. I tried everything I could to try to maybe stretch the one and try to get it to sit properly so I could glue them on there. Didn't work. You can see the kind of the way this grill is profiled. If this grill would have been, the face would have been all the way to where this outside edge is and then was flat, it probably would work, because what these do is just glue directly over top on to them like this. Whereas these don't. These are meant to be fitted with this ring. I really like the look of these. I've got them done on my other D7. I got the one of them done already. But the reason I can make them work with the D7s and not the D9s is because the D7s have the older style mid-range, and if you look, these are pretty much the exact same size as 6 inches side to side. The only modifications I got to do to these is where the holes are here. I actually have to make them come out a little further to the outside, so I'm actually just going to take a drill bit and just use that to make the holes a little bit wider. Then they work 100%. So because I can make these work on here, I'm going to remove these and I'm going to use them and put them on there. So with these four, I'm going to be able to make both sets, have the grills, and looking as close to original as possible. Because I need the screws out of them to take these off the way I'm going to, they gotta come out. If you can hear that noise, that's my shop heater humming away. I'm in Saskatchewan, Canada here, and it is November and it's cold outside already. All right, so like I said, first thing I do, start pull these out so I can work on them. So when I threw these back together, I did not put the internal enclosure back in because I knew I was going to be pulling them out again anyways. This is the open style basket, so here it's just all open to the inside. So with that, the type of enclosure and the size of the enclosure that it's in is going to affect the type of sound. This is also, these ones are not stamped. These are the ones I showed in my comparison video, and there's no markings on the back for model number, and the reason for that is because they are meant to be in this enclosure. And it's got some baffling inside there, the internal wires that hook up to the mid, and then you actually plug the wires coming from the crossover actually to plug into the back of this. And this is where you're going to find the model number. So this is an FM6H. And then we pull the top one out, no enclosure. And then here you can see the difference in the basket style. So this one is enclosed. It is, I guess you can say, like not completely sealed. It does have some of this kind of like a foam or fabric type sealing the one opening at the two openings that are on it, but that is it. Other than that, it's mostly enclosed. And this is just an FM6 on the back of this guy. So all I'm going to be doing on these, and I know it seems really crude, and this is why I needed the screws out, is because the grill on this mid doesn't actually protrude past the top of this basket. So I am actually going to be cutting not a part of the speaker, but just really the foam part or whatever fabric part, and it's not going to affect the speaker in any way whatsoever. But what that allows me to do is I just have to glue that to the other ones after I'll have to cut those flush as well. Also, these need to be cut flush for my aftermarket grills to fit. This is just kind of the best I can do with the parts that I have available. Really hard to try to track these grills down. This is one of the original grills from the D9. This one's got a pretty good little mark in it. It's not dented or anything. These are pretty flexible, but this is one that I might try gluing back onto the D9s, but I do need to get those other grills onto here in order to use these on the D9. So this would be one of the other ones. This one actually just fell right off. It didn't actually take any of the fabric piece on it off with it. They weren't really glued all that well, really, from the factory. They just kind of gave little dabs kind of here, here, and here, you can see, and stuck it on. So they don't actually, they're pretty common for these to fall off. So I'm just going to take my Olfa knife. Now, it's super important that I want to keep this blade flat along the basket, because if I start tilting this way at all, I will actually damage the mid-range. So I want to try to keep it as flat against here as possible. Try not to scratch it, but I mean, if I do, it's not too big of a deal because the new ones are going to cover it. There, just like so. You can see here, zero damage to the mid-range after I cut that off. Because when my blade goes on there, it's actually missing everything on there. If I can maybe get a better angle for you guys. As this comes across, the blade actually doesn't touch the surround or the cone of the mid-range. So this one's ready to go. And what I was talking about before, so this piece that's left on this grill, this is actually a part of this mid-range. That's the part I cut off. I want to keep that there because I'm actually going to be putting the glue onto the face of it here and then and that's the part that's actually going to glue to the D9 mids. So I don't have to try to run a glue on here and then risk having it being visible from the outside. So I'm going to do this one the exact same way. And once again, I was able to remove this without doing any damage to the cone or the surround. I just want to oval these holes out a little bit, and I just kind of want to make them basically a little further apart. I can't re-drill the holes because there's not enough room. This is the best way. So what I did, I found a drill bit that matches the size of the holes in the mid-range already. And then I'm going to drill. And while I'm moving the drill bit up and down, I'm just going to be putting pressure towards the outside, trying to get that hole a little bit bigger. Basically, just like that. So now that hole, you can see this is the one I haven't done yet. That hole is just a little bit further to the outside of the ring of here. And I'm going to do the rest of them, and then we'll start putting them in. There, that should just about do it. Okay, now we can start the reinstallation of all of these. So I'm not going to forget the internal enclosure this time. Simply attach red to the positive. And the black to the negative. Like so. And then you guys didn't quite get that in the shot, but all I was doing is a screw that comes and screws into the back of the magnet of the mid, and that attaches the enclosure to the mid-range. And this grill covers like that. So I'll just give you guys a better look at what I was talking about with those grills and why I had to drill them. If you look here, you can see that the original holes for the mid-range are a little bit further out than the holes were on this plastic ring. So anytime I'm putting any of these, any speakers back into the enclosure, I generally don't really like to use my drill or impact or anything. It's too easy to torque them a little bit too much, and then you end up wrecking or breaking the plastic, and that's no good. I use it, it's just quicker to get it started, and then I'll come by with a screwdriver after, and then that way it's easier for me to feel how much I'm actually torquing those screws down to make sure nothing gets damaged. There, just like so. Looks good. I like it. Nice, clean, fresh look. Well, I'm gonna get the other one done and then on to the D9s. Okay, now for the D9. The two that I cut off the other speaker, I already put on the other D9. So what I'm going to do, I do have one left. So this is still one of the ones I cut off the other D7. Same way I showed in the video. It's the outside part around the speaker here is what I cut off, like I showed you guys. So what that does, it makes it really simple. And I mentioned it before, is I just got to put dabs of glue on here, and I don't risk having any of the glue show through on the outside of the grill, no more than it does from the factory. So this one's going to be simple. I'm going to have to pull at least one out because I'm going to have to cut this flush here for this to sit at the right height. This is still one of the original D9 grills, and it had just actually fallen off, so I didn't actually have to use all the ones off the D7s. I still had some of these left. So for this one, I'm going to glue directly onto it, and it's going to sit perfectly as needed. This one I'm going to have to trim back to glue this to here, instead of trying to peel this part that's already glued onto the mid. The final result, if I had to try to peel this off, is it's going to look worse than if I just got this one flush here and what I'm about to cut off of this one, because I just ran it flush with my knife. And then you can use pretty much any kind of glue and stick it down. But because this one, I'm going to be gluing, and you got the holes in the grill, I did some thinking about what kind of glue I'm going to use. I'm going to try something a little different with this one. What I'm going to try for this is actually, this is the black speaker glue from Simply Speakers, comes with their glue kit, and then also when you order their recomb kits, it'll come with this, and if you add the glue kit to it. And this is black, so this I'm thinking is going to be a little less noticeable when I'm dabbing it on here and then actually putting it onto the mid-range. So I'm going to pull this one out, I think, because this one doesn't have that internal enclosure on it. It'll be a little easier. I'm going to play around with the big bulky thing. So now I'm going to take my knife, and then same thing I did with the D7s. I'm going to run it along here in the exact same way. Really easy to cut these off. There. So now I can just go ahead and put this right back in before I glue the grill down. Okay, so like I said, it doesn't really matter too much what kind of glue you're going to use on here. This is just a Gorilla Glue clear grip. This is really similar to the stuff that comes with a lot of the refoam kits. I've used it to do refoam. It works really good. It holds well. It does take a little longer to dry, so I don't have to use a lot of this. I just got to put little dabs every now and then, kind of spread it out. There, so I literally just put few dabs just all the way around it, and I don't want to use too much because then you're going to have it come squirting out and it'll be visible, so just a little bit. And then just center it nicely on top, like so. I'm going to stick it on there, and I'm just going to kind of give it a little turn back and forth, spread the glue around. There, just like that. And then that can take some time to dry. Now, I'm going to try use this stuff. So I haven't really done this yet, so this is going to be the first time. We'll see how it turns out. So I'll put this on top, see how that's going to look. I think it's going to look just fine. So I think it's actually going to be easier. I'm going to apply it directly onto here. And this stuff, you got to be really careful. This is they used to use this for lead wire dressing for on the comb. So you'll actually see this on some speakers exposed, where some of the woofers dust caps don't cover. The lead wire is going to the voice coil. It is a glue, so it will go on there. Once it dries, it'll be nice and solid. I'm going to try to use this just because it's black and it'll be a lot harder to see on the black speaker and black grill. Again, I'm just going to use little dabs. I'm also trying to just get it on the top and kind of on the outside of this kind of cardboard piece of the mid-range, because that's where the grill is going to be contacting the most. And then place it over top, like so. And again, I'm just going to give it a little spin when it's on there, spread that glue out a bit. So I can already see it's kind of protruding through the mid-range grill, but I wouldn't be able to tell other than the fact that it's just a little shinier, and once it dries, it is going to dry kind of a flat black. This stuff does take a little longer to set properly. It is a bit thicker, but that is going to work just perfectly. just like that. So I was able to use the D7 mids on the D9, got them looking good and back to the original look. I was able to put my aftermarket grills onto the D7s. If you guys are looking for grills, try to find something that's similar to that. Look for dimensions. It is exactly 6 inches across. So that is if you've got the older style mid-range with the flat, perfectly round basket edge. Anything that is 6 inches, you don't want to be too much more because you are going to run into issues of it running into the tweeter itself. So if you have those style mid-range, it makes it a lot easier to put different grills on it. If you have this style, you might have to do a little more modifying. Okay, that's going to do it for the first part of the D7 D9 restoration. I'm not sure what I'm going to move on to next. I'm still waiting for some recone kits for the D7s. There's some cabinet work to do on the D9s. I still got to figure out how I'm going to go about that. What's the best way to fix up the cabinets? Probably do vinyl veneer removal and kind of go through some of those things. I might add some internal bracing to these and maybe re-glue seams and whatnot if I decide to use the original cabinets. But I'll worry about that when I get to it. But for now, that's going to do it for this video. Remember, Cerwin Vegas, big or small, save them all.